That's why I was asking. Thank you, Wyatt. Make me come, make me squirt, see my titties through my shirt, get me off, get me wet, push my pussy to the air. Wow, I really fall off in quality.
You just have nothing to compare to Iggy Azalea, right? That's Iggy Azalea.
Iggy Azalea is in that song.
Who sings
Shout
that?
out Brooke Candy.
I don't even know who you are, but I mean, I'm sure you're a wonderful person, but like, that's not a great first impression.
No.
I think that's literally the first song I've ever heard from her. And if we were together and riding in a car.
Absolutely. I was like, dude, I have some fucking heat to show
This
you.
is such a, you're like, dude, you're going to love this song.
And did you
fucking
not?
Awful. No, it's terrible.
All right, so you're closing doors for us right now because I want Brooke Candy on the podcast.
Brooke,
Absolutely.
Brooke, to be fair, like it's not fair of me to judge you off of that alone. So I'll need to listen to some more of your music. But man, that's like, I mean, it can only go up from there. I'll put it that way. Like it can
so-
only go up from there.
On that note, welcome back.
Hi.
Yeah. I feel like I can only keep song lyrics or even just me fake singing a song good for approximately 2 seconds.
I disagree. I've seen you rattle off a whole bar from like Logic. You're
That's
really
fair.
good with Logic.
I feel like it's just for intros. I kind of get like shaky with it. I was
you
like,
get-
how
you
far
get
do I want
nervous.
to take this? Do I want to sing the whole song or do I want to just do like a couple verses? Do I
Maybe-
want to do like the bridge only?
Maybe we'll do a karaoke one. But I'll tell you this: that karaoke podcast.
Ooh.
But yeah, I don't know. I really like music. Like I'm a big fan of music
crazy.
in general. I know, but the thing is, I'm so bad with the lyrics, dude, that I only associate to like really the chorus. And like there are very few songs that I like can sing the whole thing, but the chorus only. So you just stick with the chorus.
You're just a chorus guy.
I'm just a chorus guy.
It's funny because there are certain songs that I have listened to for years at this point, and I kind of tune them out until they get to the chorus. And
Yeah.
I probably heard the song
Yeah.
almost quadruple digits,
Well,
you know, in to completion. Right.
yeah.
And I still can only remember the chorus. And those are very few and far between cases, but at the same time I completely understand.
Well, yeah, and I was gonna say it's like the catchiest part of the song, right? And that's really it's the hook. You know what I mean? It's called a hook for a reason. I guess that's more like rap songs and rap music in general. But the chorus is the hook, right? It's what pulls you in. So it makes sense that it's the thing that sticks with you the most.
Blues Traveler did say it best whenever they said the hook brings you back.
I have no idea what you're referencing, to be honest.
You've never heard the Blues Traveler song Hook?
No,
Okay.
The Blues Traveler.
Blues Traveler is the band.
That's the band. Yeah, I've
Yes.
never heard. I mean, what? There's the Blue Oyster Club or Blue Oyster Cult, right?
I believe it is Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah, like that's and then the Blue Man Group.
Not a band.
Yeah, they are.
They're
100%
not a
they're a
band.
band. I bet you can pull up music and download music from them like on Spotify.
I have
or
a vinyl from them.
How can you say they're not a band if they have a vinyl?
They are a performing group because they do a variety thing. They're a variety act. That's where that term comes from.
I've never seen a Blue Man Group, so like I've never seen them perform. So
I
guess
have.
I just know they're only. I only know them from like their music that they make out of PVC pipes.
Yes, which is fair. And that is a large part of their show. And I have not seen their show in, 7 years almost.
Are they still going around? doing
Absolutely.
stuff? That's
Dude,
cool. Good for them.
I think they have like a residency in Vegas. So even if they're not touring, they just do shows in Vegas.
That's cool. Is that how that works?
A lot of artists, whenever they don't want to tour anymore, but they still want to do shows, just have a residency in Vegas.
Past their prime? No, Blue Man Group is not past their prime. Like they are just still remarkable. A very remarkable group.
They've been around for a really long time too.
Dude, I feel like I remember them when I was a child, you know?
Some of my earliest memories were of the Blue Man Group.
The Blue Man Group. I looked at my dad and I told him, I'm going to do that someday. Well, and here we are, kind of performing, man. This is kind of a performance thing. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, me and Wyatt could essentially replace the Blue Man Group if they did want like some, what are they called for shows? Understudies? We could be Blue Man Group understudies.
That's funny, but I would want to do something different, like a different color.
Black Man Group.
Like, no, probably not.
Are you telling me that's not a marketable idea?
I mean, it'll get us press. It would get us press, and we would be probably all over the news very quickly.
Yes, but it could just be we could just do like a marketing stunt and just bring it all back to the podcast. You know,
I understand what you're saying, and I know at the heart of it, it's like any press is good press. I disagree, man.
I have not found that to not be the case. You know, I think that really the only times that I can think of where all publicity is not good publicity is whenever someone who is already well established ruins their own career, if that makes any sense. As in, like, they publicly either have to apologize for something, which is like their admittance of guilt, or
Yeah.
if they are the ones that are just straight up admitting to doing something awful in the public eye. That is some of the rare cases where publicity can kind of turn against you.
Well, publicity can turn against you very quickly, because I'm trying to think of the only like example that I can think of where somebody relatively big got like absolutely demolished because of bad publicity. Mel Gibson, right? Didn't he get
Yes.
like he got really fucked over? I mean, he also did say some really like anti-Semitic shit.
Absolutely.
Like so, that's it. That's the key is you can say whatever you want, just not about the Jews.
Well,
'Cause
what's
they
the
will
dude
ruin you.
that was on Seinfeld who played Kramer and said the N-word live on
did he?
stage at one of his stand-up shows?
I think that's just his name is Kramer, right?
Absolutely not. He was played by a person.
Well, I would have sworn because, like, so I'm not big into Seinfeld, but it always blew my mind, like how Kramer every time he came in on the like scene, he just got like a huge round of applause. I'm like, why is Kramer like more important than Jerry Seinfeld? Because that's his actual name.
Yes. Which is funny that he essentially made a show about his life, or at least an exaggerated version of his life,
Yeah, I was
calling
like-
it Seinfeld. And then I have never seen a full episode of Seinfeld. So
Really?
I'm talking out of my ass right now. Somehow, no. But it's an exaggerated version of his life. So it's or it's based very loosely on events that happened to him in his life, from my recollection, from my understanding.
Yeah.
But it seems to be like they're all just jackasses, you know? Like they're all just horrible people in New York. And it might not
Well-
be based on his life at all, you know? Like that could be something that I'm misinterpreting or that I just read somewhere and just like totally
Yeah.
like,
Let me
like,
let me interject right here.
wait. Thought. I have to think of what I was saying. I'm still really feeling fuzzy. I need to finish the rest of the C4. But I could have just like read an article and thought of it as fact, you know?
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what I was trying to get at.
No, I got you. Yeah, it's like when you read the headline of an article and you're like, oh, that's what this article is about.
And
then
I
you go
have not read
it.
anything on Seinfeld in a long time, so it might have been in my younger years.
So I haven't really watched a lot of Seinfeld either. I've watched a few episodes, but nothing crazy. However, I wouldn't even say that they're like bad people or pieces of shit. You know what I mean? It's like, what's that one TV show that is like they are straight up like pieces of shit, and it's like the three guys, and they're like
It's
work in
Always
an
Sunny.
office. No. That there's like there's three guys in that, but there's also the girl. It's like I don't know. I can't remember the name. I'll find it at some point, but. No, it's not even like they're like shitty people. It's just like I would say they're normal people. Like they're not overly good. They're not. It's like Friends. You know what I mean? Like they're not
just
really
people going
exactly.
through their day-to-day.
And like they all got their own quirky little like personalities and stuff, but they're not like good or bad. I would say they're kind of just there and they just react. You know what I mean? But I will say this: that I think Jerry Seinfeld had one of like the coolest moments on like an interview about his show. I don't know if you've seen this, but if you haven't seen this clip, you should, because like, so you know who Larry King is, right?
Sure.
Like he's kind of a big deal. Is he still alive? I wonder.
No, I think he
he
died
die?
relatively recently.
I'm thinking it's Larry King, right? Like I'm the guy who would like.
The dude in the suspenders and the bow tie
Yeah,
and the
yeah, yeah.
glasses that would always interview people.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is Larry King. So he did like an interview with Larry King, who is old as fuck, by the way. I think he's just always been old until he died.
If he is dead.
If he is dead, I don't know if he is dead. I feel like I would have heard that about that. But Larry King asks Jerry Seinfeld about like, hey, so like, how did you feel like when you like your show got canceled? And Jerry Seinfeld looks at him. He's like, Larry, canceled? We were the most viewed like show on TV on our last episode. I didn't get canceled. He's like, I canceled them. And I was like, I bet you that felt good.
I can imagine.
Dude.
Wyatt.
So Larry King died January 23rd of 2021.
Oh, CISO was pretty recently.
Very recently.
How old was he?
He was 87.
Damn. What? Oh, God, he did not age well, dude. I thought he was like 90.
R.I.P. to a legend, though, for real.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
before we go too off topic, I just wanted to circle back to this. Kramer is not his real name.
What's his real name?
Michael Richards is the actor's name. And that was the dude who said the N-word live during a stand-up performance several times in like a really
Several
weird
times.
racist rant towards like a heckler. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a video. You can find it super easily.
I don't care enough.
Those are the publicity things, right?
Yeah.
That I can really think of where people have just derailed their own shit.
Although, can I also say this? Because on that note, like, that was also a completely different era. Because, I mean, look at fucking Logan Paul.
Suicide Forest is what you're
Yeah,
thinking of.
dude. He literally, like, what? And, like, look at him. He's massive still. And people
doing
love
great.
him. It's like, it's almost like nowadays it's more true than ever before that just getting your name out there, it doesn't matter how you put it out there, but nowadays, like, it's never been more true. Because I feel like there were a lot more repercussions for getting negative, like, PR back 20, 30 years ago, back in the 90s. You know what I mean?
And this is a double-edged sword because I think that, especially for someone as young as Logan Paul, image redemption should be a thing. But at the same time, it's kind of the court of public opinion, which is weird because I think that there are always going to be people who dislike people like Logan Paul, not just him specifically, and people that dislike him, right?
Well,
or did I say dislike twice?
I don't
People that
know.
like and dislike him.
Yeah.
And it's odd because obviously, if you haven't heard about the Suicide Forest shit that Logan Paul did way back in the day, I don't feel like rehashing it. That is
Yeah.
very old news.
Yeah.
But he has done a significant amount of image rehab since then. And he was very young whenever that happened. He's still young.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is a lot to be said about growing up, even if it's later than it should have been, you know? Like, I think that anyone at his age, whenever he did the whole Suicide Forest bit, you should probably know better by that age.
Well,
right?
but he also had a very interesting like life, right? You know, anybody who's thrust into stardom like that at such a young age definitely like has an effect on the mental, right? However, I will also say that one, I don't know about Jake Paul or Logan Paul. I don't know why I don't know why I keep saying
They're
Jake.
the same person.
Yeah, totally. But like the thing about Logan is I don't really know anything about him. And like, yeah, I've seen some videos and some clips of him and he seems like an okay guy. Like it seems like he's definitely like grown up, but like who the fuck am I to judge that? You know what I mean? However, I will also say that it could just be like a part, like who knows? Maybe he's like he's actually super smart and super clever and the whole thing and all of that is just an act, you know? It's just a persona that he puts on, which actually somebody we were talking about before the podcast got into that we could talk about is Andrew Tate,
Yes.
you know?
And it's a whole thing, right? So before we go on the Andrew Tate trail, Logan Paul is just an interesting case because
Yeah.
he's done the rehab. He's done the work, and I think that he has grown up a lot. And who's to say at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Not us.
Yeah.
But before we trail even further off, this just supports my idea. Let's start the Black Man Group. See, I had to bring it full circle.
I don't want to be a part of that. I really don't. I
Man,
gotta be honest
We
with
can
you.
literally be like, hey, just kidding. Ha ha ha. Funny joke. Listen to our podcast. That's all we need to do.
I mean, yeah.
We don't even have to keep it going for very long because the trajectory in which that would take off would be insane.
I mean, we could always just use like pots and pans in the kitchen too.
That's what I'm saying.
Because isn't that like no? That's way too racist. That's too racial. I'm not about this.
Not
this
even
is,
on
this
purpose.
This is a slippery slope, man. And I'm not like, nah.
Are you telling me
I'm not about that.
You wouldn't do blackface for the clout, bro?
No.
The Prime Minister of Canada did it.
Who the fuck is the Prime Minister of Canada?
We're not getting into this. We'll get into Andrew Tate. But
No.
Justin Trudeau.
But I do
literally-
know that name.
Yes.
There's a whole thing with Justin Trudeau. I
Yeah,
do
you
know
don't
that.
invite him to a Halloween party because he will do blackface. That's the whole thing. That's a bit.
He also has a very interesting family heritage, if you believe the conspiracy theories and stuff.
Okay, I don't want to go down that
yeah,
rabbit hole.
yeah, we don't need to.
Andrew Tate.
Yeah, so Andrew Tate, back to the whole part and persona, because like he's kind of a big deal right now. I mean, he's been in the talks for the past like month or two. I think he's kind of dying out now, but
Well, it's because he's been banned on every platform.
Oh, really?
So he doesn't really have a mouthpiece.
so to be fair, like he's another guy that I really don't know. I saw like a lot of videos and clips from him and stuff. Some funny, some not really. You know what I mean? And like I guess the whole thing is like he's a misogynist, right? However,
That seems to be his shtick.
yeah, I mean, haven't seen enough to like really like develop an opinion or really care about the guy. However, I will say that another guy that I really just think is just an extreme character. You know, like I don't think that's actually him. I feel like it's just a persona and a character that he puts on, like whenever he's out in the public facing. You know, although I did hear something that like he was running like a trafficking, like a human trafficking thing.
Yes.
I didn't look into that. Like, what's going on with that? What?
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
What?
Large cans of worms. To my knowledge, it's not like sex trafficking, but it is essentially like it's like labor trafficking, if I'm not mistaken.
Like child trafficking?
I'm
like,
not sure.
Like child labor?
Not like child
What?
labor, but like illegal trafficking of human beings for like
what the
labor
fuck
purposes.
is that if it's not sex?
It doesn't have to be sexually related to be human trafficking. Like
I've
you can
never
literally
heard-
bring in immigrants and call it human trafficking. And I'm not sure that's what's happening. Like I can do a little Google search, but
Why it's on it, I think.
before we even get into that, this is my stance on the
Yeah.
whole Andrew Tate thing.
Yeah.
Because he has essentially been deplatformed off everything.
Well, let me ask you this: do you think it's justified to deplatform the guy?
Well, I'll answer your question with kind of a roundabout statement, but
And
stick with me.
I will also say that's a huge question to like ask.
No, it's
And,
loaded,
like,
and I
goes
have
through a
thought
lot.
about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Because like the only way that we can know someone like him is based off of what we see on social media, and it's a very shaky line. But at the end of the day, my stance has been for several years now, private companies can do whatever the fuck they want.
I agree.
And if they literally do not give a reason, even if you're not violating terms of service, if they're like, we don't like you, they can do what they want.
Right
And
to refuse service. Yep.
yeah, and it's not super cool, you know, and a lot of people will disagree with that. But at the same time,
Yeah.
I think that there is something to be said about that, you know. And my biggest thing, the biggest thing that I have been able to really kind of glean from this entire situation is you and I can approach this and go, is he really a misogynist? Is he playing a character? Who knows, right? Because honestly, even I don't. But that's almost missing the point. Because we can ask that question, but there are a lot of people who take less time to form their opinions on these things or are just more easily swayed by these things, and they might be taking a lot more of his words as gospel, right?
Yeah.
And it's the younger crowd most of the time, right? Or the insecure male crowd. And these are the people who, even if this guy is just farming the clout, and he even thinks that he's being inoffensive in what he's saying, he's just like, oh, it's just a character, right? There are certain people who could potentially take a lot of the things that he said very seriously.
Way too seriously.
And that is where it endangers other real human beings.
Okay, now here's the thing on that, because like again, like I said, this is a huge like topic to try to tackle. Because whose fault is that really? You know what I mean? It's like, is it Andrew Tate's fault for putting this idea and this way of thinking out there? Or are you just finding a way to, like a different way to blame and shift responsibility from the actual person who takes those thoughts or does those actions? You know what I mean? Of whatever negative thing it is.
And I really do like that, right? Because I do believe, to a large extent, I think we've even talked about this in different contexts, I believe in personal responsibility.
On
to,
whatever it is.
to a large degree.
Yes, I
But
agree.
on the flip side of that coin, there are a lot of contexts, because life is very complex, where I may not necessarily even support that stance. Just because it's usually the younger crowd that gets this message, right? And a lot of people who have even done things very ironically in the past and have been playing even more exaggerated characters have been taken the wrong way by people who might have been too young to really form an opinion on this. And that's where it becomes a very shaky issue, because I don't think that we should shift responsibility from any people that are committing heinous acts, no matter what their excuses,
Sure.
right? It's like the violent video games thing and school shootings, right? Where,
Yeah.
generally speaking, even if someone is committing a violent act and proclaiming that violent video games are what made them do it, chances are there were other things behind that, right?
And
So-
they were just finding a reason to do it. Like, they would have found the reason elsewhere if it didn't come from a video game, right?
Exactly. So I'm not going to say that Andrew Tate is the sole cause for misogyny in the world as it is today.
Obviously not, yeah.
But at the same time, being such a large voice in it, even if he doesn't create some violent attack in his name, what is he adding to the conversation?
Sure. Well, and I don't really know because, like I said, I haven't really seen too much or anything, so I can't even think.
None of it's good.
Well, I can't even think of anything that like he's done that's he said that was misogynistic or anything. But like, I
Pretty
can't
much
really-
everything
I can't,
that he said.
But I can't really.
You can't
think of
quote him
anything.
verbatim, so it's fine.
Yeah, I was like, I can't really think of. And maybe that's the thing is maybe I did think he was like being like an idiot, and so I just forgot everything that he said because I do that a lot.
And we are in a very lucky position to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But something that I did want to talk about, because like you said, like, and that was something I was going to bring up with the whole Logan Paul thing is like, obviously, like, he is targeting a much younger audience. But then it goes back to it, like, because I know you hate, like, shifting the blame and shifting responsibility. I'm going to shift the responsibility because kids and children and young adults do not have the capability of being responsible for themselves.
Yeah. I would argue most full-grown adults don't.
Yeah, well, yeah, but again, now let's look at that statement, right? Is it because they can't take care of themselves, or is it because they were never taught? You know what I mean? It's like, because I mean, I recently started coaching again, and so I'm working with a lot of like kids who like range from, you know, whatever 6, 7 to, you know, young adults. You know what I mean?
Coaching gymnastics, just for context.
Yeah, just for context. So I've started doing that, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, like, I have seen some kids who are just like well behaved and won't do something because they know it's wrong. You know what I mean? And that can be instilled in a child very young, you know? Again, if the parents aren't there to like mediate and control what the child is consuming on a mental aspect or whatever, however they are, it's not the kid's fault. You know what I mean?
No.
The kid never had a fucking chance.
No,
You
never.
know what I mean? And like, so again, I'm with you about not shifting responsibility and not doing anything like that. But when it kind of goes back, I don't know why, but Footloose jumps into my mind.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's because it's like these people want to get rid of like dancing, right? And it's like, oh, how dare you bring music and dance to my kids? It's the devil's whatever, you know?
It's the devil's lettuce.
That's what I was thinking, but that's weed. And yeah, weed is fine if you're an adult. But
Take weed, kids. Eat it. Eat it straight from the bush.
only whatever, there's CBD. Yeah, CBD's fine.
CBD is like
CBD
a
's fine.
synthesis, though.
Just
like
no.
there- You can do CBD plants now. This
Yeah.
is such a fucking tangent. But I think you can do CBD plants. They're just less common. So like if you were to see like a marijuana leaf in the wilderness, it's
Yeah.
probably THC.
Well, naturally, yeah, but you can. It's like crossbreeding and stuff like.
Okay,
Anyway,
okay.
it doesn't matter.
It
doesn't
this
matter.
Is so much right now.
It doesn't matter.
Circle back.
Yeah, kids. I kind of lost my train of thought because I got
Personal responsibility. Don't shift blame. Weed is fine.
Weed is fine. Yeah,
That's not at all the closing statement that I
Weed
was
is
hoping
fine,
for.
guys.
Okay, I can kind of pick up where you left off. Don't worry. But essentially, I think it's way nuanced, and you hit on a lot of things because,
like I said.
one of the things that you did say was the kids never stood a chance,
Yeah.
and I agree. And
It
that
sucks.
kind of comes down the pipeline further back than we can even imagine.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just a self-perpetuating cycle,
Yeah.
and it's just a shame because
It does.
I don't foresee
It
that,
sucks. Well-
that cycle ending, and this is kind of the big thing, I guess, is that these companies that are banning Andrew Tate are essentially saying we don't see responsibility being taken and action being taken, you know? And this is a whole web that could be constructed anyway because social media obviously targets and exploits children already. So
Yeah.
if you're getting this targeted content and you're a 13-year-old boy and they see you interacting with Andrew Tate posts, they're going to push more of that to you.
Yeah.
So it's this whole interconnected, very messy just mess, I guess.
Yeah.
Where there's not just one responsible party. And while I do believe that at its core, right, whether we're talking about young people, young adults, whatever, I believe a lot of it is up to the discretion of like parents.
Responsible parties.
But at the same time, because of this ease of access, I don't think it's just their responsibility.
I disagree wholeheartedly, man. Wholeheartedly. You can control what your kid consumes. I know it's hard.
Never 100%.
Never 100%.
And
But
that's where it becomes, or at least where these companies feel it becomes their responsibility, whether it is or not.
but
is a
even
different,
then, and I get it.
different bag of fish.
I get it, but even then, like another bag of fish.
It felt right to say.
I didn't. Yeah.
It's not really an expression, but it
It
felt
can
right.
be.
Can of worms. I like bag of
bag
fish
of
more.
fish. A bag of fish.
I feel like a bag of
Swedish
fish is actually like a bag of live fish.
I understand sardines.
I feel like that's better, like a better allegory, because it's way messier than even a can of worms would be, and it's a lot harder to get a hold of something in a bag
It's
of
wiggly.
fish. Exactly,
It's wiggly.
slimy.
And yeah,
Yeah.
very.
If
very
they're, like,
slick.
live still?
let's make that a thing. It's
It's a whole bag of fish.
It's a whole bag of fish.
Yeah, this is a bag of fish. That
This
we're
is a
in
bag
right
of
now.
fish. So yes, I do agree that you can't control 100%, right? Because you can't be there 100% of the time, especially if kids are going to school and whatever. You know, that's a lot of time that they spend away from the parents. However, you can still instill. You can still like give them. Yeah, I guess. You know, that's like rhyming a word with itself. That doesn't really work, at least not in my opinion.
Eminem would beg to differ, bro.
All right. I guess I don't
Continue,
I don't know a
please.
lot
I'm not
of,
trying
like,
to derail you.
You just did a little bit, but yeah, you can't control 100% of what the child like consumes and what they have access to. However, you can still instill bars.
Dude, you're getting hung up, bro. Come on.
It doesn't sound right. Those values and those morals, I guess, that if they know something is not right and is inappropriate or whatever it may be, that they should turn around. You know, that's where the self-discipline and the self-mitigation comes in, I guess.
Yeah, and that is a very strong argument because it is something that you can't regulate 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of really amazing parents who can instill those beliefs in really amazing kids.
And it's tough.
Counterpoint, I was the opposite of that as a kid. Okay.
What do you mean?
I would literally, if I was told not to do something, even if given proper reasoning, I was probably going to figure it out for myself, regardless of the damage that it did to my brain.
Well, and then that's a whole nother aspect. That's a whole nother bag of fish.
That's what I'm saying. Is that
Because-
there's so many nuances in this, right? Is that even if I was not a subscriber to misogynistic belief as a kid, right? I was still, if I was prohibited from doing something, I was like, fuck that. You know, and I would seek it out even harder and find even sneakier ways of getting a hold of those things.
Well, and
right?
I would argue that that's actually just even like an aspect of human nature. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like a car accident or whatever.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's why it's so nuanced, right? Is because, like, I still was able to turn out fine, you know, because I had to learn for myself. And I was like, you know what, fuck this. I have to grow up, you know. And I was able to essentially turn morbid curiosity into something that is not like taboo in my own head, right? Where like for so long, like even just things like, because I grew up religious, right?
Yeah.
But things like sex, right? Even in just movies and things like that, even if they were still properly addressed, or like violence, obviously. That's another huge one that kids are like morbidly attracted to.
Yeah.
Those are all things that I would seek out just out of curiosity, right? Rather
Yeah.
than any sort of like any other base urge. It was just curiosity, right?
No,
and
I
I had
agree.
to figure out things for myself, and I'm glad that I did. But I don't know if everyone would turn out the same way
And
when
that's
hearing,
what I was gonna
whenever
say.
hearing whether it's damaging rhetoric or
Well-
something, or seeing something violent,
Sure.
something pornographic. It doesn't matter. This can apply to so many different facets.
Well, and I want to say something on that note, because I 100% agree, because like I did the same thing, like
Yeah, you and I are a lot alike in
yeah,
that way. where-
exactly,
Where,
like,
we absolutely, if we were told not to do something, most of the time, adults would probably not communicate as to why we shouldn't do something. They just
Yeah.
say, don't do it.
Yeah.
And then with that lack of reasoning that being there, usually we could end up damaging ourselves even more,
I feel like I definitely I don't go to a therapist or anything on I really maybe should. I feel like everybody should have like a counselor or a therapist. Like it's pretty healthy. But yes, I do agree. Like I saw a lot of stuff I really shouldn't have seen at a very young age.
Word up.
I experienced a lot. But on that note, that also made us real. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
'Cause
well,
we live
are willing to talk about it.
Exactly.
Not a lot of people
Well-
are, or if they are, it's usually in creepy subreddits where they found out that they were turned on by scat porn at age 14. So that's kind of the thing.
gross.
That's kind of
so
the thing, right?
disgusting.
Is that, and it can be even
Oh my
worse than
God.
that. But that's the thing,
Oh.
is that we kind of realized that there was no meaning to it, if that makes any sense. But we
Yeah,
also
see, and that's
still...
what I have two things I want to say on this. But
Okay.
go ahead and finish your
So
thought.
we just realized, you and I, that these things are the messy part of life. And I don't
Exactly.
think anyone should try to sweep certain taboo subjects under
Exactly.
the rug.
I agree.
Because that actually makes things fester, way worse.
Exactly.
Whether it's in a young person, old person, doesn't
I
matter.
agree.
Because you're letting these things fester. And if you're not allowing open communication for most people, then these things are going to become worse. The issues that they may develop in your brain will become worse. But you and I think, were able to, even if we weren't communicating about it to people, we were able to realize that while it's technically a real part of life, like all of these things that we discovered probably at way too young of an age thanks to the internet,
Yeah.
we realized that they were a part of life
Exactly.
that you can't eliminate from life, period.
Exactly.
But they're also not what's important.
Dude, you just hit on the exact 2 points that I wanted to talk about in that one sentence.
Yeah,
'Cause-
I kind of figured I would just
No,
by my
'cause-
little interjection there,
Yep, because one, we live in such a sheltered life, or world, I should say, and everybody has a stupid fucking hero complex or something where they have to be the hero and they have to make things good and they have to make things comfortable, whatever. We ironically enough, I think we live in a very people pleaser age, which is I think why we have cancel culture and the widespread censorship and stuff like that. It's because people are I have to protect this person because they can't protect themselves, and it's one,
It's the God complex taken
Yeah.
to the internet.
God complex, hero complex, whatever you want to call it.
Same div.
Yeah, really.
Savior complex is another one that
Yeah,
gets thrown
yeah,
out a lot.
exactly. But yeah, literally, that's a part of life. You know what I mean? We are fortunate to live in the time that we do where there's not people dying on the streets. But that being said, if we just lived in another country, we're also pretty blessed to live in America, no matter what anybody says about it and how awful they think it is. But I've met people from other countries and they've seen people get burned alive on the street. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's and that's an everyday part of their life,
It's actually funny how things like that are still widely reported on in American media, right?
Yeah.
If it happens in, say, Chicago or something.
Yeah.
Whereas in other countries, it may be something that happens close to daily. Maybe not
Weekly,
in the most
daily.
gruesome way, like burning someone alive, right? But
Yeah.
people are definitely... death is a way more common part of a lot of people's lives.
Exactly.
Right? Death, violence, just the worst shit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is, we are very fortunate, because I grew up so sheltered, and I was almost the one who unsheltered myself, right?
Yeah.
For better or for worse, because at the end of the day, it made me who I was, who
And I
I
think
am.
you're all right.
It made
I
me
think
who I
you're all
am.
right.
But at the same time, it probably did irreparable damage.
Like
You
I
know?
said, dude, like I feel like I should probably have a therapist or something, go talk to him, but like I have that ganja. I don't even smoke weed. I literally don't even smoke weed.
I was like, where are you going with this?
I don't know.
But
It's
yeah, no, heroin is the best therapist.
I
Truly.
was going to say unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
But
just internalize it.
honestly, I do think we got lucky because we found each other, and
Yeah,
we also did
yes.
find, I would say, a decent group of like-minded people in
I
our
agree.
lives, not just you and I.
Yeah.
And even if they were not the type to do that to themselves, to put themselves through things voluntarily at a young age,
Yeah.
right? Even if it was just with a quick Google search, stuff like that, it feels good because we are able to at least communicate openly, not just with
Sure.
each
Well,
other, but with a decent group of people.
And on that, because like I wanted to like go into the second point that I wanted to make that you actually hit on.
Yes.
Is people just take it way too seriously. Like again, you have to understand that that shit's a part of life, you know. And if you make it a big serious thing, then again, it's gonna tell the young person or whoever is experiencing it for the first time, like, oh, this is a big deal. And then it's like, oh, it's a big deal because it's good, or it's a big deal because it's bad. And then if
That's
it's like,
almost more damaging because then you
Yes.
allow your brain to just trail off with it
Yes.
wherever it may go.
it's okay to be curious, you know, and it's okay to go experience stuff. Hey, man, feet's not for everybody, but if you want to go stick that toe in your mouth, go for it and like see if you like it.
Yeah, okay. Before we go, first of all, in my head, I'm still thinking about young me, right? Like, this is a lesson for young me, and then you're
Yeah.
just like, hey, feet are for everyone, son. But
Try it,
but
Get
try it
out
out.
there,
Like
you know?
14-year-old me, I'm like, okay. but yeah, I do agree. So I'll kind of expand on what you were saying because all of these things are part of life, right? And we're talking about the ugly shit, right? The things that are so easily
Yeah.
accessible. Probably slightly less accessible nowadays, actually, just because the internet has
Not if
kind
you
of
know where to
changed.
look.
Shut the fuck up, Josh. I'm making a point. But it doesn't matter. These things are easily accessible, right? And that is why I'm a huge proprietor nowadays, going through what I have gone through with my internet stint, right? And being one of the first generations that was so exposed to the internet at such a young age, right? Like being one of the very first generations, right?
Yeah.
Essentially unfiltered access to
Yeah.
a lot of things. I have realized that, and I think you can agree with me on this sentiment. Education does trump all,
Yes.
right? Because
And can I just want to interject one thing, not just education, but the ability and motivation to learn just every day on every aspect, just to learn, and not necessarily education in the system that we have, but just wanting to learn and educate yourself.
oh, Wyatt, yes,
I do want to interject because you guys were talking about like how in other countries it's just like death is such a normal thing,
Yeah.
and then now you guys are talking about education. It's just too perfect. So I went down.
yeah,
to,
those are two things that you can either find in abundance in other countries or not at all.
Or not at all.
Well, see, I went down to Guatemala in 2019 to work helping a school, oddly enough. And we were talking to one of the mothers of the school, and she was explaining why she liked the school, which is an American school brought into Guatemala. It's called Escuela Integrada, meaning it's a school integrated.
I was just about to say integrated school.
Yeah,
Makes
exactly.
sense.
I didn't know that.
That's some of the only Spanish that I could pick up.
Okay.
Yeah. And so down there, it is. They don't have police. They have military.
Yep.
So you're walking down the street and there's 5-10 people walking around with AK-47s. Like, it's normal. They're just like, just don't stare at them. You'll be okay. And it's like, it's hard not to stare. We don't, like,
Yeah,
our cops
'cause-
all carry tasers and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
Like,
And maybe
then,
a 9mm.
But she was explaining this story about how her daughter would always ask for 2 quesadas, which is their currency, every day. And so she finally said, "What are you using this for?" When her daughter was going to public school, and she says, "Well, when we get there, if enough of us give the teacher 2 quesadas, he'll actually teach us."
Huh.
Jesus Christ.
So a paid teacher didn't get paid enough and didn't care enough for the kids
Yep.
that the kids had to bring extra money to bribe the teacher into teaching.
And it's ironic how that works because because if you're going to make a system or a society better, it all starts with the kids, man. Like
Straight up.
it all starts with the kids because on the point, like, because you hit on it, like we are the first generation to have access to knowledge and information and systems that we are. And maybe that's why it's one of the biggest points of contention. And it's scary for a lot of, I don't want to say older people, but previous generations, because
People who didn't have it growing up.
they
Period.
don't fucking understand it, dude. And so they're scared, and like, so how terrified would you be as a parent with your kids, and now they're using something that you don't even understand how it works.
And
you
think about how many parents you've heard say, "Oh, my toddler can use the iPad better than I can."
and I'll have to get my toddler to show me how to do what you're telling me.
Essentially.
Yeah, which is wild. So it's like, it's understandable why their first, like, again, the previous generations, why their first reaction is, well, they shouldn't put it out there.
Fear.
Exactly.
Fear is usually the first response.
Exactly. So, yes.
Okay, I'm going to circle back really quick, Wyatt. I see you eyeballing that microphone.
Yeah.
But essentially, what I am getting at is not just with kids, but I believe it starts there, but with almost everyone, right? Except for the truly mentally deranged, which is it's not my place to even begin to judge what that means.
Yeah.
But for most people, right, who are legitimately worried, who are legitimately troubled, legitimately curious about something, right? I think it's our job not just to educate, but also to communicate with as little bias as humanly possible, right? Because obviously an unbiased opinion is impossible to come by, but that's not the point. The point is sometimes it's better to just listen and communicate with people, especially if they are, say, like from our generation, right? And they're maybe not as communicative as we are, but say they're still truly traumatized from something that they might have seen online at one point
And
or
they were
another,
never
right?
able to talk about it.
Because of their environment, because they
Exactly.
didn't have a support
They
system.
didn't
Doesn't
feel
matter.
comfortable. Yeah.
So that's the thing, is that it's not just young kids. While obviously they do qualify and they will continue to, I think that we have to start to nurture more open lines of communication if any of us are going to get better. Because as soon as we start imposing judgment on people, it doesn't matter how large or small that judgment is, all it does is make things worse.
Yep.
Truly.
And again, to make a full circle, because back to the question that I asked you, is it okay that, like, Andrew Tate was taken off of all these platforms? I do agree with you that 100% private business, do whatever you want. However, if you create a platform based on communication, all forms of communication should be allowed to have a voice or come out.
Okay, I'm not going to play devil's advocate for too long, and I'm not expecting a giant thesis on this one, but
Yeah.
are you saying including like hateful ideology?
Or
Or are we talking about like even like minor attracted people on Twitter? The entire like pedophile community? Like and this is not me throwing out
No,
things
no.
to derail you, but I do legitimately want to know.
obviously there's a lot of heinous people and a lot of heinous acts out there. Pretending that that does not exist and that is not out there is not going to make it go away. You have to be able to talk about this. And yes, I stand by this wholeheartedly. You should be allowed to say and do whatever you want on a communication platform if it is marketed as such. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
So,
That's a hot take. That's a spicy take.
because again, it goes back to everybody has a voice, everybody has a take, and everybody has their own personal experience, and you have every right to turn away from it and not click on it and stay away. Because I would even argue that it maybe even says more about you, not you, Cameron, but like the person,
The royal you.
the royal you. It says more about you if you can't handle that information out there, because man, that shit has existed for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and it will continue to exist for thousands and thousands and thousands of years after us if we continue to ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist.
I agree. That's a very nice point. And I think that there are a lot of hot takes in there that I won't even address all of them individually, just for fear of running too far on time.
Yeah.
But I do like that idea, just because there are two sides to this coin, right? And I'm not saying I necessarily subscribe to either, but the first side is shutting these things down, right? Like, this is a big one. This is a huge point of contention on Twitter because they do seem to be essentially harboring pedophiles in certain areas under the guise of the MAPs, that is minor attracted person, right?
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. But I do find it very interesting that like there are people who just want to essentially outright ban these people. And I'm not necessarily in disagreement with that. Especially because a lot of these people do share harmful material with one another. But at the same time, there is something to be said. While these people should never feel comfortable enough to operate in the open, period.
Exactly.
I do also believe that getting them off a public platform would not do anything to their numbers.
Because, again, it goes back to the whole importance of it, right? Like, if you feel so strongly that this cannot be allowed, this cannot be out there, and like you have to shut it down, that you can't even like hear a thought of it or whatever it may be. That
pedophiles, hear them out.
That's not what I'm saying.
Just kidding.
I get what you. But again.
I understand your point, but just out of context, that shit's so
I
funny
know,
to me.
God, and like I do not support that. By the way, I will.
Well, thank you for
there.
clarifying. Yeah, just in case anyone was unclear on our pedophile stance,
we don't support that.
we don't support pedophiles on It's an Us thing. Wyatt, what are your thoughts?
So looping back,
No.
I
Wait, I was totally fucking with you there. I was expecting we don't support them. The fact that you didn't come out the gate with that,
was a little
I'm really
worrying.
concerned.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
concerned
kinda
now.
worrying.
We're gonna have a chat later. But let Josh finish his thought.
Yeah,
first.
and then because again, this is a good wrap up. Because again, it's not important enough to shut down the communication. Don't wink at me when we're talking about pedophiles, Wyatt.
Wyatt, I swear to fucking God, you're killing me right now.
He's like pedophiles. Ding, wink, swing.
I'm so sorry, everybody.
Yes. Shutting down the conversation about it will only draw more people to it. You know, if you are able to have that conversation that, yes, this exists, and no, it is not okay, people are going to be drawn to it. You know, it's like, why are they shutting it down? Maybe they're onto something. Well, I don't know what they are, what they're into. I don't know what this is about. It's so interesting. It's so mysterious.
Well,
it's
that's that's also how a lot of hate groups are formed.
Exactly.
Right? And this could keep essentially branching out into different topics, right? Because
of course,
there are so many
works.
psychological factors to this.
Yes.
And I won't go too deep into this. In fact, I'll wrap my thoughts just so Wyatt can share his thoughts on pedophilia and how it's okay. His hands are up in the air right
He's
now.
like,
He did
hey.
not like that.
He's like, hey.
Okay, so I'm going to fully wrap my thoughts because I know a lot of these thoughts have been slightly rambly because they're hard to make concise points on without a script in front of you.
Yeah.
But essentially, I'm going to take it back. I'll fully circle because I do want to kind of encompass everything whenever I say this, okay? But I think that whenever I say... So I've already stated open channels of communication.
Yeah.
Right? This is what I mean by this, okay? And there are such small gestures on both sides of this that it doesn't always have to be as major as what someone as open as myself would do, if that makes any sense. But if I trust someone, they essentially have access to my entire life.
I will
right?
show you my butthole.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
100%. I'm just
I will show you my butthole. I will show you the pictures that I have of my butthole.
Pictures.
Yeah, and the videos. You know, I don't have pictures of my butthole.
I hope not.
currently.
all your
Currently.
goatee.
Yeah, I will show you my best
Goatse.
goatse impression live in the
Goatse.
flesh. But that's what I'm saying, right?
Gross.
Is that these open channels of communication they're not that difficult to establish, and I've never found them
scary.
difficult.
It's
right?
scary, though.
But that's the thing, is that I'm literally such an open person that as long as I'm close to you, bro, look through my Google Drive, see what I got
go.
all up in there. You know?
You can see my tastes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is that not everyone finds it that easy.
It's good to be uncomfortable.
And so far I haven't been, but I guess that's just
That's a
the
little-
territory. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know if it's autism or if I'm just a sociopath.
It's
Doesn't
just
matter.
us. It's just an us
It
thing.
very well may be. But regardless, it does not have to be that drastic. Just check on your friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is where I want to go with this, right? It does not have to be something nearly as serious as harming children, right?
Yeah.
But say and not to say that harming women is not less serious. That there's not a scale of serious things.
Or harming yourself.
Exactly. But regardless, I digress. Let's say, in this hypothetical, you have a friend who is subscribing to... Did I sound like Ben Shapiro there? Is that why you were...
Let's say, hypothetically,
Let's say hypothetically.
for this situation,
but let's
That
say...
wasn't bad.
I thought it was pretty... I mean, it's
ahead.
just nasal.
Anyway,
doesn't
finish
matter.
This, yeah.
So let's say you have a friend who has been oddly vocal about Andrew Tate or some of his ideology. maybe echoing some of his ideology, right? You're like, oh, this might be concerning, right?
Yeah. Have that conversation.
A lot of people's first reaction would just kind of be to either laugh it off or to automatically
Write 'em
shut it
off.
the fuck down.
Just write 'em off.
But like in the most unproductive way possible.
Yeah.
Right? Where this human being is still very much a human being that probably has just had a fall off, you know. He's fell off the old wagon. They've fallen off the old wagon.
Yeah.
In whatever way that may be. Whether it is something large, something small, maybe not even internet related, but you just say, hey man, can we talk? You know? And I feel like there are a lot of people
Honesty.
who would still be very ashamed, you know, even if it was something that they were technically saying publicly, like a lot of people who support ideologies, whether it's like Andrew Tate's or otherwise, even if they're saying things publicly, they may still be ashamed when confronted one-on-one.
Yep.
To address these things.
Yep.
But at the same time, that's a huge step. You just have to let these people know that you're coming from a place of sincerity.
And you have to be genuine in it, right? And you
Because
have
if you're
to-
automatically going
so-
to destroy them with
facts of knowledge,
facts do not care about feelings.
yeah, if you're going to try to automatically shut them down
It's not
or
productive.
tell them why they're wrong, because even if they are in your mind objectively wrong, that gets neither of you anywhere.
Exactly. You got to be willing to have the conversation. You have to have honest communication, and you have to be unjudgmental in the most genuine way possible. Wyatt, what was your thought? You don't have anything to say? Cool. We are wrapping it up here. I think we kind of trailed off a lot there.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, I think we made our stance on pedophiles clear, except for Wyatt. It was kind of weird that
yeah,
he didn't.
it's a little worrying.
It's fine. He doesn't get a mic for the rest of this episode now because his privileges have been revoked. But just in case it wasn't clear, Andrew Tate, probably not our favorite person. I
Yeah.
would be interested to get him on the pod, but
Just
I
have a
think he's
conversation.
annoying as fuck just based on what I've seen of him. Even if he's not a reprehensible person in real life, that character, stupid as shit. I hate it.
I don't have an opinion.
Nice.
Cool.
That was the mute button, my guy.
Yeah.